That awkward moment when you go to edit the 3 videos you just spent the morning prior shooting, only to realize that you actually didn't have the microphone plugged in at all? That's only slightly frustrating, but anyways, hi. So anyways, during this little writing journey that I've been on, as of this exact moment in time, as you can probably already guess, I have not been published. I am a unpublished author, one of millions. However, there were a number of times where I got pretty close. The first time I almost got published was from a magazine by the name of Sinister Grin Press. Sounds pretty inviting and sounds pretty sinister. I believe it was a anthology just for some kind of generalized horror. I can never say that. Horror. No, but seriously, it was just like a generalized horror kind of anthology, I believe. I don't think there was any kind of specifics. I remember the story at the time was actually pretty short. It could not have been more than like 1,200 words. It was pretty quick, other jokes notwithstanding. So yeah, I submitted that short story to that magazine, and lo and behold, I got an email a few weeks later saying, "Hey, you've been shortlisted. Please wait longer." And so I waited longer, and after waiting longer, I got another email. Only this one was not actually saying that it was rejected. It was saying that the anthology that I originally submitted to was no longer a thing. That kind of sucked. Basically, I think that magazine was going under because I don't think they're around anymore, but they did offer me to send them another short story to their sister press, and I did, and I never heard back, probably because that sister press went out of business as well. I can only assume. Haven't actually looked into that. Hashtag research reality. Yeah, so that was the first time I ever almost got published. Now, funny enough, that second story that I sent to their sister press is actually the next story that I almost got published. This time from a much more well-established magazine. Fantasy and Science Fiction Mag. Now, for those of you who might not know the name, they are actually a pretty big deal. They've been around forever, and getting a story published there is a hell of a writing credit. So when I submitted that story to them, I did in fact get rejected, but I got a personalized rejection. While that might not seem that super great from an outside perspective, you have to keep in mind that these magazines, these publishers, they don't actually make a whole lot of money. Their staff is usually very strapped for time. They don't exactly have a whole lot of human resources. And when they are getting dozens of submissions a week, hundreds of submissions a month, and thousands of submissions a year, they are not replying to every single submission. You will get a form rejection and you will be happy about it. Or really sad about it. But on the one rare chance that you actually do get that personalized rejection, it's actually a great sign, because it means that the editors actually liked the story. They think that it actually has potential. It might be a great story in their eyes, but it might not fit the market for the magazine, or maybe another story took that slot. You know, it's highly competitive. And while that might not seem significant, let me tell you, it is. So yeah, Fantasy and Science Fiction Magazine. Oh no, my battery's dying. Shit. Every time. Okay, anyways. So yeah, Fantasy and Science Fiction Magazine, while they did reject my story, they did give me a personalized rejection. And actually, they gave me pretty good feedback. I believe they said something along the lines of, "Hey, we really liked the story. We just didn't think that the ending matched the pace within the context of the rest of the story." Basically saying that for how long the story was, because it was on the longer side of things, the ending was just kind of, you know, over super quickly. Other jokes notwithstanding again. And so that was cool, because not only did it give me hope for the story that it actually does have potential, especially coming from a magazine such as them, it also gave me some insight to what editors are actually looking for, and I did in fact change that ending. So there's that. Honestly, that was really helpful. I really did appreciate that. The third time I was almost published was actually a lot more serious. But funny enough, each one of these actually increases in not only prestige, being from a small magazine to an actual big magazine to an actual publisher, a big publisher at that, but also in terms of word count, because that first short story was actually rather small. Like I said, I think it was like only 1,200 words when I first put that on submission. But then the second story was, I think, like 8,000 words, something like that. But then my novella, which is what got really close the third time, it's like over double the length of that short story. So it's like, it's kind of funny. The third time I almost got published was with my novella, my disc golf novella. It's all about disc golf, kind of. There's a lot of blood too. Bloody disc golf. But it was kind of a trip because I want to say that it took me about a year, maybe a year and a half before I actually started submitting my novella, which for those of you who don't know, a novella is just a short novel. It's like too long to be a normal short story, but it's too short to be classified as a novel. So it's like kind of like that in between, like kind of in between. In between. But yeah, so the first time I ever submitted my novella was actually the first time it got shortlisted, which I was like, holy shit, that's kind of cool. If I had any doubts about it before, let me tell you, they were fucking squashed. Yeah, so I submitted that to Crystal Lake Press. You know, Crystal Lake? That's where Jason lives. And Crystal Lake Press is also a very prestigious publisher. They've published the likes of Stephen King, Wes Craven, a few other names. So it was kind of a big deal to get shortlisted by them. Actually, the email said I made top 50. Now, I don't know how many were originally submitted, but still top 50 in what was probably at least a few hundred, if not maybe even 1,000, just based on how big that name was. I don't know, it's very hard to gauge. They don't tell you that kind of stuff, but maybe they should. But yeah, regardless, I made top 50, and I was high as a cloud on endorphins for the next 3 months until I inevitably got that rejection. And that one sucked. That one hurt. But it did show that it did have potential and that I was actually getting closer. So it wasn't all bad. And it was a huge deal. Huge! First submission. Bam! Shortlisted. Bam! Rejected. Damn, that sucks. But the next time I got close to getting published again probably wasn't for, I don't know, maybe another year, something like that, where I got personalized feedback again, this time from Grinning Skull Press. First you had Sinister Grin Press, then you have Grinning Skull Press. There's a theme here. But this one was almost like 2 instances in one of almost getting published, because Grinning Skull Press did not allow for simultaneous submissions, which is kind of a popular thing magazines and publishers do. So I couldn't submit my novella to anyone else because it was with Grinning Skull Press. But I reached out to them like, hey, so there's this other place called Bloodshot Books that I had literally been waiting like a year for them to open up, and I believe it was like a small window. And once that window started minimizing, I was like, oh shit, I'm not about to wait another fucking year or 2. So anyways, I hit up the guy from Grinning Skull Press and I was like, hey, can I submit to these guys as well? I know it's in your submission guidelines. And he was like, yeah, that's fine. Actually, I'm pretty sure he rejected me. I'm pretty sure that like expedited the process, but he did give me feedback. He did say, hey, this thing in the beginning, it's cool, but it doesn't quite make sense in the way that I'm interpreting it. And I'm like, hey, you know what? You're right. So I kind of fixed that one little thing, because in the first 15 or 20 pages, just one thing seemed like maybe it was a bit unrealistic, or maybe it just didn't have the justification that I thought it had. And an editor who is not about to spend a whole lot of time on something that he doesn't think he's going to purchase, from their perspective, they're looking down the road thinking, well, if you found this in the first 15 to 20 pages, how many more instances of that will you find? So it was probably just one of those things where, I already hit him up saying, hey, can I send this to someone else? And he looked it over and early on found something that was kind of a red flag to him. I also corrected that too, so thanks for the feedback again. And then yeah, so then I sent it over to Bloodshot Books and I got another rejection. But even with that editor, I had to secure my submission to him because his due dates were about to expire, but I couldn't submit to him until I heard back from the guy at Grinning Skull Press. So it was like this whole like trying to submit to one before it ran out. So it was like a whole thing. And Bloodshot Books also rejected my novella, and things went quiet for a while after that. Mainly because that's when I bought my house. Yeah, I wasn't really submitting to anyone anything that I had for quite some time because, you know, I bought a house, it had a lot of work to be done. This wall used to be mint green. 70s mint green. You'll probably see that on my skate videos. But anyways, kind of like took a while to kind of get those gears turning again. Eventually I did. But this is also during the public health issue. The publishing industry is already really saturated at this point. So there's not a whole lot of publishers taking submissions, but there's a whole lot of submissions to be had. So that supply and demand, I don't know, it was kind of tricky to even find someone to submit to. But I did find one. It was kind of a new publisher and it was for my novella. So I submitted my novella to them and I believe they just wanted like the first 30 pages, maybe the first 3 chapters, you know, something like that. And I got a full manuscript request and that was pretty cool. And here's my furnace. Anyways, I got a full manuscript request, which was pretty cool, and I sent over the full manuscript, and I awaited a reply, and in like 3 to 4 weeks later, I got a rejection, and there's my furnace. There's my furnace. And that was just like last week at the time of filming, so that was like super recent. So I guess that sums up all the times that I was almost published. It would have been really cool just to get one short story or even my novella out there. Obviously to share it, and obviously to, you know, maybe make like a few dollars, because there's really not a lot of money in publishing books. But mainly just so I could get a writing credit, and that way when I go to submit my actual novel to agents, I can be like, hey, I'm actually not just a brand new author, dude. I actually have something published. It would have been a really good resume builder if any of those had happened, but I did not. And honestly, that's fine, I guess, because, yeah. Even if I do get something published, it's not like it'll completely change my life forever. It will just be years of hard work paying off with like an actual achievement. Achievement unlocked. 100 gamer score. It's just another reason why writing fiction is just so hard. Are you tired of hearing me talk about how hard writing is? But I did start submitting my novel to agents about, what, 2 months ago? Something like that? Got about 7 or 8 rejections, but hey, you might be able to rack up 50. So it's like, I don't know, 6 ain't shit, really. So yeah, I mean, I got that. I haven't really been submitting my short stories at all. I haven't really had the time making all these videos and whatnot. It's just another reason why writing is as difficult as it is. You know, you have to be able to deal with all that rejection. You have to deal with all the times that you get really close. Times where you think, man, this is it. I really got it this time. And then you go back to square one and life just kind of continues from there. So yeah, that's kind of like a little summary of all the times I almost got published. But I guess the cool thing now is, by the time I do get something published, if and when, instead of just putting out like a little update on the Facebooks or the Instagrams or anything of that sort, I guess I'll be sharing it with my YouTube people. You know, all 5 of you, or maybe 10 of you, or however many I have at the time I release this video. So yeah, yep, pretty challenging stuff. Almost got close a few times. We'll see if I can't get close again, and I'll let you guys know all about it. Alright, cool. I'll talk to you then. Bye.